Chaos. A gaping pit waiting to swallow us all.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
Most people watch that scene and think it's a villain monologue. The man we're supposed to hate telling us the worldview we're supposed to reject, before someone good comes along and proves him wrong. Except, nobody comes along, and nobody proves him wrong. Peter Baelish, the man with no army, no name, no birthright, climbs higher in Westeros than almost anyone in the entire show, all while noble houses get slaughtered around him, while dragons rise and kingdoms burn. He doesn't cause the chaos. He just shows up to every disaster with his ladder already polished. For tonight's episode, the one truth nobody at the top wants you to figure out, and the one truth nobody at the bottom wants to admit either. Most people remember the famous line,
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
and stop there. But there's a quieter idea underneath it that the show keeps proving over and over again. Littlefinger isn't telling Varys that he loves chaos. He's telling Varys that every system pretending to be order is actually chaos with branding. The Iron Throne looks stable, but boy, it hella isn't. It rests on the swords of conquered enemies, the assassinations of inconvenient heirs, and a series of carefully arranged fictions about who deserves what. Westeros isn't a kingdom, rather, it's a managed disaster dressed up in heraldry. And the people who understand that, really understand it, get to climb. Because they're not waiting for a system to be fair. They're not asking permission. They're not surprised when the rules changed overnight. They're already moving. And that's the posture. And it's a real posture, not just a TV one. Because the thing about people running our actual world, the ones with the wealth, the influence, and the access, they have figured out something the rest of us are still being trained to ignore. Every disruption is an opportunity, if you have the resources to be on the right side of it. A pandemic, a war, a market crash, a new technology, a regime change. To you, those things are catastrophes. To them, those things are openings. And the part that should genuinely irritate you, they're not even hiding it. Every January in a Swiss mountain resort called Davos, the wealthiest people on earth fly in on private jets to attend the World Economic Forum. They give speeches about global problems. They fund think tanks. They write op-eds about the urgent challenges facing humanity. And then they go home, get back to work, and continue building the world they've been describing. To them, the chaos is a market to be served. The people at the top aren't climbing despite the chaos. They're climbing because of it. Let me give you 3 numbers that should make you put down your phone and stare at a wall for a minute. Number 1. In 2008, the global financial system collapsed. $20 trillion in household wealth evaporated in the United States alone. People lost houses. Pensions disappeared. Marriages cracked under the strain. 8 million Americans lost their jobs. And the next 18 months, the men who designed and sold the financial instruments that caused the crash collected, in bonuses alone, more than $18 billion. Goldman Sachs paid out a record $16 billion in bonuses in 2009, the year right after the crash they helped engineer. Not in spite of the crash, because of it. Because the panic created opportunities to short the very products they had sold to their clients. Number 2. In March 2020, the world locked down. Small businesses died by the millions. Restaurants closed. Wedding venues went under. People watched 20-year careers end on Zoom calls. Meanwhile, between March 2020 and the end of 2021, the world's billionaires added $5.8 trillion to their net worth. $5.8 trillion. The wealth of the richest 10 American billionaires grew, in inflation-adjusted terms, by 526%, 6 times over, while ordinary people were burying their parents through plexiglass. That wasn't an accident. The pandemic wasn't a disaster for them, it was a sorting event. The small competitor died. The supply chain consolidated. The platform expanded. The stock buybacks kicked in. The unemployed worker became, 6 months later, a desperate Amazon delivery contractor. Number 3. As of January 2026, billionaire wealth has grown by 81%, since 2020. The wealth of the world's billionaires increased by $2.5 trillion in 2025 alone, almost equivalent to the total wealth held by the bottom half of humanity. The world's richest man, at the time of recording, that's Elon Musk, became the first person in history to be worth more than $500 billion. $500 billion. And the AI boom that's threatening millions of jobs? Well, yeah, he's the largest single beneficiary of it. The people at the top, yes, they want you defeated. They want you exhausted. They want you scrolling past the next billionaire mega yacht story and just sighing like, well, of course, what can I do? That's a version of you that's most useful to them. The version that decided early that the climb wasn't for you. So, no, take your shot. Start a business, build a side project, apply for the thing. Move countries if you want to. Learn the skill. Save the money. Refuse a script that says you were born into a floor and you're going to die on the same floor. That defeated narrative is the one that Littlefinger needs you to believe because his whole ladder depends on the people beneath him not climbing. Because the thing nobody tells you, the system isn't infinite. There are gaps in it. There are doorways the people at the top forgot to lock. There are entire industries shifting under our feet right now where the old guard hasn't figured out the new rules yet. And the people who climb in 2026 aren't the people who waited their turn. They're the ones who saw the chaos for what it was, an opening, and stepped through it before anybody told them they could.
I'm a killer, a stone-cold killer.
If chaos is a ladder, you have a choice. You can stand under it and call it unfair, or you can grab a rung. Now I want to tell you the part Littlefinger doesn't tell you in the speech. Because in the last episode of Game of Thrones Season 7, the one where Peter Baelish, master of the climb, the man who arranged half the deaths in the show, the architect of his own elevation, kneels on the floor of the Great Hall of Winterfell and begs for his life. Sansa Stark, the girl he manipulated, used, married off, betrayed, and tried to manipulate again, reads out the charges: murder, conspiracy, treason. He stutters, he pleads, he cries. He name drops every favor he ever did for anyone. Nothing works, and Arya cuts his throat with the same dagger he had once given to an assassin to kill her brother. And in his last moments, on the floor bleeding out, Littlefinger looks genuinely surprised. That's a part of the climb the ladder story that nobody puts on the motivational poster. Because what happens to climbers, if they're honest about it, the first rung is exciting. The first time the bank balance crosses 6 figures, it feels like waking up. Like the world finally agreeing that you exist. Then, the ladder gets longer. Because the system noticed you climbed. And the system, being what it is ready with the next rung. And the rung after that. Each new rung has new things to lose. On the bottom rung, you were afraid of not having enough money. On the second, you become afraid of losing the money you have. On the third, you become afraid of losing the lifestyle. On the fourth, you become afraid of losing the status. On the fifth, you become afraid of losing relevance. On the sixth, you become afraid of being forgotten. And every fear is bigger than the last one. The more you have, the smaller the things that can hurt you, but the more terrifying each one feels. The first pay cut hurt for a week. The first stock dip wakes you up at 4 a.m. for a year. And by the time you're high enough up the ladder to look down, really look down, you find that you've forgotten the kid who started climbing. You don't remember what they wanted. You don't remember why they began. You just know there's another rung. And you can't not take it. Because not taking it feels like falling. And falling now would be unbearable. Littlefinger spent his entire adult climbing. He arranged wars. He betrayed friends. He murdered allies. He sold a teenage girl to a sadist for political advantage. He climbed and climbed and climbed at the highest rung he ever reached. Lord Protector of the Vale. Regent over an entire kingdom, and finally, powerful enough to be the man he had always wanted to be. Yet he was on his knees on a stone floor, alone, surrounded by people who had hated him, asking a 17-year-old girl to please not let her sister kill him. The climb wasn't a ladder. It was a cage with rungs. And he kept asking for more rungs because he never figured out the bars. The system is rigged. The chaos is a ladder for people who already have ladders. And refusing to climb makes you complicit in the version of yourself that the system wants you to be. small, defeated, scrolling past stories of other people's lives, wondering where yours went. But climbing doesn't end where you think it does. There is no top. There is no last rung. The people you envy are climbing too, and they're more afraid than you are, not less. The billionaire on the yacht is not relaxed. He's checking his portfolio every fucking 20 minutes. The CEO on the magazine cover is not free. He's negotiating his next exit. The influencer with the millions of followers is not happy. She's terrified with the next post will be the one that costs her everything. Everyone at every rung is climbing. Everyone at every rung is terrified of falling. The ladder doesn't lead anywhere. The ladder is the thing. So here's the devil's midnight thesis, if you want it. Climb, but know what you're doing. Take your shot, but don't confuse the shot for the meaning of your life. Build a business, save the money, learn the skill. But build a self that exists outside the climb, so that when the climb takes a bad turn, you don't lose everything. Because the thing the climbers at the top discovered too late is that they spend their whole lives building a self that only existed on the ladder. And once you're on the ladder, you can't get off because you don't recognize the ground anymore. The chaos is a ladder, and that much is true. The hard part is figuring out which rungs to take, when to stop, and who you want to be when you finally remember the climb was never the point. That's Devil's Midnight Thesis. Think responsibly. Or better yet, take responsibility.